Another quick video. So I think this is 31. I'm in Vukovar, which is still in Croatia. I think that's where there was a war of some kind and maybe a little so-called genocide. Of course, that term's only ever applied to whomever opposes the status quo. Whereas if you're on the team of, say, the US or whomever, and you kill people, then it's just called war as opposed to genocide. Anyway, a few little notes I wanted to make. I was thinking, when I'm on the bike, I don't listen to anything because it's a little bit dangerous, especially here in Croatia, which is where I lead on from. I literally have just taken out my Bluetooth earbuds for the first time and put them in my front satchel, just because I'm quite tempted when it's a rural area, given that it's a national holiday, to maybe plug something in. Mainly because I see it as a waste of time, and the other part being, of course, it gets quite boring when you're on a straight road in an area that hasn't got any scenery. So, yeah, if it's a quiet day like a Sunday or a national holiday, or I just happen to be in the middle of nowhere, I'm going to start banging on podcasts and stuff because there's so many things to learn in the world, and not to utilise your time seems like a bit of a waste. So, leading on to Croatia and dangerous, this is the place with the worst cycleways I've ever seen in my life. So not to say it has the worst place to cycle, because I'm sure there's plenty of places that are pretty shit to cycle, but it's obviously they've just joined the EU, they've got a load of money. It's all a scam, of course, and they create all these cycleways, but unlike a road where you obviously have sections and it's formatted on a foundation to withstand weather conditions and the weight of freighters and just time itself. Cycleways are a bit of a scam, it's a bit of a gimmick. They probably get a sizable portion of what it would cost to construct a road, but what they do is they just overlay the tarmac on bare ground or something with a really thin layer underneath, and it's just shit. Or they convert existing pavements, which are completely unsuitable, into cycleways. But that's not really the point, because I've seen that from time to time in certain places. Belgium had some poorly upkept, we'll say, cycleways themselves. The biggest, most insane thing with Croatian cycleways, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. You would never even expect this in a country where the IQ standard is like, par 50. They don't drop the curb. They have not dropped the curb. So cycleways, of course, naturally are gonna, every, 20, 30 seconds, cut into a sideway, a road, a suburban road. So you're constantly having to stop, and you're constantly having to slam on your brakes because they haven't dropped the curb. So cycleway, no curb drops. Either it's a financial scam and they just had a load of excess standard curbs that someone got a contract for. Probably that, and probably combined with the fact that they're going to get so many complaints that they're then going to have to remove them all, and the same firm will get the contract for putting in the correct dropped curbs. Imagine not having dropped curbs on sidewalks. A fucking sub IQ. I've seen more dead animals in Croatia in these 3 days than I've seen in the whole trip so far. I saw a dead ferret, I've seen dead cats, I've seen dead pheasants, 2 dead barn owls. This is actually all in 24 hours. Just dead animals everywhere because they speed. I haven't seen a single police officer, not even one. Everyone just goes over the limit. People drive really dangerously. And it's interesting to note the difference between, and I'm not saying I prefer it, but the difference between Western European etiquette. So take German etiquette as one such example, but I think we would do the same in the UK. You go to a supermarket, and of course, you load your goods onto the conveyor, the cashier register, and the person who puts their shopping behind you is either supposed to push up the bars to obviously segregate each person's shopping to be polite and for efficiency, or they just do it themselves. They put it on yourself. So either they push it up for you to do. Here they don't, and I find it Yugoslavian culture being a derivative of it's communism. Communism created, because it's very much Russian-esque, this kind of parallel universe between what was and what is, whereby that transition to capitalism is like giving you know, a homeless man, like, I want cash. They don't know what to do with it. It kind of, it promotes greed and envy and all this kind of stuff. You know, when the so-called Berlin Wall came down and, you know, the Iron Curtain came down, which is all bollocks anyway, but, you know, when that came down for the general public, let's say, you know, that kind of rush for the gold, like the gold rush in the US, you know, has just sparked lack of etiquette, which was obviously implemented under kind of totalitarian measures during the era of communism and socialism. But, you know, that's one of the positives too, you know, these so-called authoritarian ideologies, many of which are bad, of course, but people naturally in a world that doesn't promote education are always going to steer towards poor demeanour, poor mannerisms, and capitalism obviously promotes all of that. As we see today, you know, shit music, shit film, people would rather TikTok someone getting stabbed or punched on a train than actually help them. You know, and all these places that are just slower to transition into what we currently have in the so-called West will naturally gain that. And you get to see it live stream. People are really rude here. And there's that kind of thing which is very much a term deriving from kind of new money, old money in the UK, where you have the aristocrats. You might have, you know, 20, 30 million sitting in the bank, but the way they characterise themselves, the way they present themselves rather, is quite sophisticated and classy. You know, they're not going to go and buy a lime green Lamborghini, but the footballer does, because they're from a background without money, without etiquette. So yeah, it's very much the same here. You know, people just to go to the shop and have a coffee, especially the ladies, which is very Russian, will dress up in like a ball gown, or, you know, spend 3 hours doing their clothes, dressing up in insane dresses, polishing their shoes, going to get their hair done, just to get a coffee, because it's all about a show, it's all about competition, and that's what was brought about by, you know, the fall of the Iron Curtain and allowing people to essentially chase the pennies that get scattered on the streets. So yeah, that's what I've noticed from my time in Croatia. I have to say it's one of my least favourite countries in the world, actually, for sure. It's definitely up there. And I'm in an area that isn't touristy at all, so I'm actually in the real Croatia. No one comes here. Haven't seen a single camper van, not one in 3 days, and that's the first time. I've been coming through France, Belgium, down into Germany and Austria, of course, where people take their camper vans and caravans, and there's a huge emphasis on kind of family holidays and that stuff. None here, not because it's not geared up, which is in part the reason, but there's just nothing to see in this region. But I can promise you, having been to Dubrovnik and areas like that, it's even worse, because it's so touristy. The jump to just take as much money as possible is probably one of the worst places in the world, which is why Croatia's become one of the most expensive places in the world on its, I always forget the name, it's Riviera, but there's actually a name for it, I can't remember the name, but it's Dalmatian coast, that's it. So yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say. There were a few little more things I was thinking about when I was on the bicycle for the next video. One thing sparked in my mind. I thought Serbia was in a different time zone, but thank God it's still in the same, because we're in Yugoslavia, which is weird. I always thought Serbia was a different time zone unless it's changed, but I just typed it in on the internet and it says it's the same time as Croatia, but I don't remember, unless all my devices changed, which I don't think they did. I don't remember Croatia changing from Austrian time, and Austria's the same as German time, which is the same as France and Belgium. So I'm a bit confused about that, because I always thought Serbia was aligned to Moscow time, so I might Google if that's changed recently. Yeah, in terms of prices, I think I've already said it's really expensive in Croatia. It's obscene, and way more than the UK for standard supermarket purchases. The UK is the cheapest place, which I've always said, and having been back obviously recently, I validate that. You know, even with the so-called, you know, recession and the price hikes, inflation, all that kind of stuff, it's way cheaper for food than anywhere else I've visited in Europe so far. And yeah, this is probably going to be a 10-minute video. I'm just going to have a little 5 seconds. Have I said everything? Yeah, so this is the bag I was talking about earlier. Obviously, like this here, which I could wrap around, but I'm too lazy. It puts a little bit of pressure, not pressure, but rubbing on my back, I should say. What else have I noted? Yeah, I've started to get quite good with the devices. You know, all my charging portals, my banks are pretty much full with power now, because I'm good at conserving. You know, I turn the GPS off when I've got a mental idea of like, or a screenshot of, you know, where it's going. And yeah, I guess that's it for now. And yeah, I'll post this up, and maybe I'll do another one later. Who knows? Might even do an all-nighter. We'll see. But I'll have one up tomorrow.